Jessica said, my name is Brea Kaye. I work with a lot of different states, but California is where I'm from. I'm from Oakland, California, and so doing healthy relationship education here really holds a
Hey
special place
everyone.
in my heart.
As Bianca said, my name is Charitable. I was also born in California in San Luis Obispo area, and I am so happy to be able to provide One Love's education and content all throughout California.
Awesome. So we're going to start with a screen share. Get you a little more comfortable with what One Love is, the work that we do, and then walk you through a little bit of our content, and then have some time at the end for you to ask any questions that you may have. So I'm just going to make this bigger, theoretically. Perfect. Awesome. So as we said before, we are One Love. We did introduce ourselves, but just in case you wanted another visual, here we are. And then I would love to start with a warm up. And, we had who are you and where are you tuning in from? Bianca beat us to it. So, I think, when we're talking about healthy relationship education, it's really important to see how world events impact our lives. So I'm curious, how have your relationships changed in the past few weeks? And if you would just put that in the chat, that would be great. Yeah, so a lot of phone calls and FaceTiming in a way that maybe we haven't experienced as much before. I'm seeing that it's hard to be locked up, right? It's hard to be with family 2 or 3 hours out of the day. It's additionally harder to be with them 24/7. Absolutely. A roller coaster of emotions. Yeah, I think we've all been feeling that we've been experiencing things a little differently than maybe we would normally. Awesome. So feel free to keep putting these in the chat as we go. Um, Christopher, I'm really sorry to hear about the passing of your dad, and I think that we can all say that we've really been missing friends and family um, over the past couple of weeks. So we're gonna get rolling into the history of One Love. So One Love started in 2010 after the death of a woman named Yardley Love. This is Yardley Love. Yardley was a senior at the University of Virginia. She was a D1 athlete. She had just accepted her first job outside of college. She's planning to move to New York when 3 weeks before she was set to graduate, she was beaten to death by her ex-boyfriend. And at the time, no one in her life knew that she was in an abusive relationship. And it wasn't even until uh, the trial, when domestic violence experts took the stand and when her friends and family took the stand, that people really began to understand the nature of that relationship. And it is the full view of One Love that if people had been able to identify the tools and skills that they needed to have these conversations, that she would still be with us today. And one of the most surprising things that came out of the trial was the realization of how prevalent this issue is. Right? 1 in 3 women, 1 in 4 men, and 1 in 2 trans and non-binary folks will be in an abusive relationship in their lifetime. And no statistics that we show you are meant to be scary. They're really just to ground the seriousness of this work and of the conversation that we're going to be having. A couple of other statistics. I know that some of the people on this call are in high school. Some of the people on this call work with high schoolers. So just knowing that nearly 1.5 million high school students nationwide experience physical abuse. 1 in 4 dating teens is abused, harassed online through texts by their partners alone, right? That doesn't include cyberbullying they might be getting from classmates or strangers. And 33% of teens who are in an abusive relationship, only 33% of them ever told anyone, right? So this issue is not only widespread, but it also, when we're talking about healthy relationships, a lot of social justice issues that we really care about, are healthy relationships are at the core of those, right? In order to do full prevention education, we really need to think about the way that we are with each other and the way that we treat each other. And that is, sort of what the mission of One Love is. And that, our vision is that through education and through educating young people on the difference between healthy and unhealthy relationships, through our workshops and discussions, that we are opening people's eyes and offering frameworks for conversation and to change behaviors. And, all in all, when we give people these tools and resources through our workshops, we hope that they are then empowered to pass this information on and change the statistics in their communities. And our approach is twofold. First, it's educating, right? So Sheridan is going to walk you through.
Okay, it looks like Brea may have frozen. The fun part about working from home is sometimes our Wi-Fi goes out, right? Hopefully everybody can hear me. Yes, hopefully so. So as Brea was saying, our approach is really to educate young people and anyone who will listen about we lost Brea's slides. Let's see if I can share my screen really quick. I believe I can. And I'll go. There we go. Sorry. Slideshow. Oh dear. Sorry, everyone. Having some technical difficulties.
If I can try to get Brea back on here. Give me a moment.
Yeah, no worries. With the screen sharing, I have the slides up in front of me. What's best to do? Do I put it in presenter mode or? Oh.
Sure. Thank you.
Okay. So that should work. Okay, so at this time, One Love have reached over 1.1 million people with our in-person workshops. We're going to talk a little bit more about our workshops later and some of our video content that we use in those workshops. We also are a train the trainer model. So we actually train community members, teachers, students to facilitate these workshops in their communities. So we've trained over 24,000 facilitators, and we've had over 100 million views on our online content. And you may be wondering about our content. So the content that we have, like I said before, is video-based for the most part. We have a few non-video workshops, but we find that using engaging, relevant, age-appropriate video content is the best way to bring people into the conversation and also to give them the same base of conversation. So instead of having to talk about things that are happening to them or talking about things that they've seen and use their own experiences, which can sometimes, be either upsetting or it can even just be difficult to feel like maybe you don't have as much experience as somebody else in the room and aren't able to talk. We have this mutual jumping off point of watching a video, focusing on the behaviors of the couples or the relationships in the video, and then talking about them. And I'm happy to show you some of our content next. So in order to talk about all of our different content, because we have things from the cartoon couplets, which you'll see in just a second, all the way to a very heavy film called Escalation that shows a real life couple and ends in a traumatic incident. We need a common language to talk about all these things with, because relationships exist, in our families, with our friends, in our romantic relationships. And it's really good to have a unified language. So we have our 10 signs of a healthy relationship and 10 signs of an unhealthy relationship. And this is the language and the context we put onto all of our videos, which Brea and I will demonstrate for you in just a little bit, if we can get Brea back, but let's hope so. So right now we have, do you mind clicking next, Bianca? Thank you for doing the tech.
Trying to get her back on here, unfortunately. Let's see. We'll see if I can, I'm gonna send her a quick email to see if we can have her pop on here through our link.
Yeah, no worries. Or I can try to share again. Okay, so we'll just move on from here. So if you were able to get a good look at that 10 signs of a healthy and unhealthy relationship, these behaviors that we're listing out here, so expecting a friend or partner to respond quickly to texts or calls, or spend all day in person with you because they may be home, self or relationships escalating faster than normal, self-isolating together after a short time, or quarantining and being unable to leave your relationship if it's healthy or abusive, or unhealthy or abusive. Does anybody have any ideas for those who caught a glimpse? What does this sound like to you? Like, what are these behaviors showing, especially in this time of shelter in place? Control. Yeah, absolutely. It sounds very controlling. Insecurity. Absolutely. Yeah, and so this one, for our 10 signs of a healthy or an unhealthy relationship, I keep saying that. This actually shows a lot of intensity, right? So somebody who is, it feels like too much too soon. It feels like they are very intently trying to take up more and more of your time. Also, things in nature can just be intense. Self-isolating together after only a short time together, that can be a very intense experience. And also in this time of quarantine or shelter in place, people know we're home. They know that we maybe don't have as much to do because social interaction is much different, but expecting a friend or partner to respond quickly to all texts, or even I've heard of people, like it says in here, like FaceTiming in person all day, that can be a very intense thing. If we can go to the next slide. I'm not sure who my ghost presenter is, but thank you to whoever they are. I don't know if that's Bianca or Brea.
So unfortunately, I wasn't able to get Brea to come on, but it seems like she's on as a so she is on the chat box. I'm so sorry about the technical difficulties, but she's here.
That's A-okay.
Thank you.
Okay, so one of our next unhealthy signs is guilting. And in quarantine, this may look like, does anybody have any ideas what guilting might look like in this time of shelter in place or quarantine? And you can say so in the chat box. Okay, so for me, I know that a lot of my friends have expressed, in that same vein of, why aren't you responding to my text right away? I know you're home. I know you're not doing something right now. Um, Guilting almost to like, hey, I'm home and I'm so alone and I don't have my friends around me. Like, will you stay on the phone with me all day? And sometimes, that's totally fine. Like, people sometimes need a little extra support as long as another friend or significant other family member is okay with supplying that. That's one thing. But if somebody is using that kind of emotional pull, like to get you to do something maybe you don't want to do, that is an example of guilting. Like trying to get you maybe to, oh, is Brea back, perhaps?
Perhaps. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Incredible.
Okay, so yeah, making somebody bad for for having conversations about boundaries. That's a big one, because right now we all need to be setting some sort of boundaries, right? We have new boundaries, perhaps. Like I'm sheltering in place with all of my family, and if we didn't talk about boundaries, then it would be a whole different scenario up in here. And expecting someone to be okay with or sending and receiving explicit photos or messages, guilting can look like, well, we don't get to see each other. Like, I can't see you, so you have to send me this thing, or, or you don't love me, or I guess our relationship isn't as strong as I thought it was. And this can take place in shelter in place or anywhere else.
Awesome. Sorry about that, y'all. So just like we did with the first one, I posted the 10 signs of an unhealthy relationship in the chat. If you could look over those and thinking about this scenario, lashing out or extreme reactions to inconveniences like Wi-Fi cutting out, fighting them over household items, or more people home than normal in shared spaces. When we say that scenario, what's the first thing that pops into your head out of those 10 signs? All right. Well, so what we call this is volatility. This is a word in our workshops that a lot of people have trouble with. I think the lack of chat box activity makes that pretty clear. A volatility is that idea that you're walking on eggshells around someone. You never know which version of that person you're going to get in a day, and it's really important, especially when we're thinking about things that we might have been fine with before sort of the current state of the world are a lot harder now or are different, and really being aware of how our actions and reactions can affect the people around us. And so we're going to end sort of this portion in a positive note. So I'm curious if you all can think about what are some examples or what are some ways that you can or have been incorporating healthy conflict throughout our shelter in place, work from home, new state of the world. Nice. Yeah, giving people space, understanding boundaries, respecting boundaries, understanding that boundaries might have changed. talking through the little things that you might have not noticed before, like the way someone chews or the way someone breathes or something like that. Open and understanding, things like that. I think those are all really great. Conversing with one another, having those conversations that you maybe didn't have before, but now have all the time in the world to have now. And this is sort of just an overview of what we've come up with, but recognizing what boundaries to set with others and approaching the conversation with patience and care, and knowing that just because you are in the space with someone for a long period of time does not mean that you can't leave the space in order to have the physical distance you need to have healthy conflict and conversation in that space. And I also want to apologize, my chat box was scrolled up. I do acknowledge that y'all were responding to the volatility question. My bad. So as Sheridan said, at One Love, we have a whole range of different kinds of content. We just talked about the 10 signs of a healthy and unhealthy relationship, but we also have couplets along with a lot of other different kinds of content. But what I love about couplets is they're little animated blobs, right? And they really allow people to have conversations about what they're seeing without putting the onus on them, right? It's really easy to say blue blob and orange blob are having these problems and having these conversations. And that's a great way to sort of deflect that from you and just look at them in terms of these animated people on a screen. And I also just one other thing I really want to highlight is that when One Love is talking about relationships, and granted, Yardley was in a romantic relationship, and that's sort of what we were founded on, but we're talking about all relationships, right? We're talking about friendships, dating relationships, the relationships you have with your family members, with your classmates, with your teammates, and how we can empower people to love better in all of those relationships. So we'll be watching 3 videos, and we'll watch them each twice because they move kind of quick. But then we will break those down, be asking you guys to participate in some of these questions, and get you all really thinking about these 10 signs of a healthy and unhealthy relationship and how those apply to the couplets that we'll watch. So, couplet number 1. Let's hope that this...
I haven't seen you in a couple days. I've missed you.
I've missed you too.
I haven't seen you in 5 minutes. It feels like a lifetime. What have you been doing without me for 5 whole minutes?
It's been 3 minutes.
So let's watch it one more time.
I haven't seen you in a couple days. I've missed you.
I've missed you too.
I haven't seen you in 5 minutes. It feels like a lifetime. What have you been doing without me for 5 whole minutes?
It's been 3 minutes.
Thank you, Sharon.
You're echoing if it's your own sound. So in that couplet, what did you all think? If we can scroll up, we have all the unhealthy behaviors again. Which unhealthy behavior do you think was being exhibited there?
Sorry, I ruined the surprise.
That's okay. We can go ahead and go forward. So yeah, that was showing intensity. So somebody feeling like they can't be away for 5 minutes, right? And it's only actually been 2 minutes or 3. So how could social media make it harder to set clear boundaries? And does this change the way that we're interacting with friends or partners at this time? And feel free to put in the chat. chat responses to come in. I'll just share that social media does make it pretty hard to set clear boundaries. Personally for me, it changes the way we interact in that what are the boundaries? It's a little more ambiguous, right? Because interacting online, whether it's, in a dating relationship or in like a cyberbullying sense, it has less like solid rules or guidelines, and it's harder sometimes to negotiate those with people. And yeah, Lucy shared that maybe some of the ways that this is changing the way we interact with friends or partners is that they are checking when you're online. So they're aware that you're online, even when you're not telling them that, or you're not giving them that information openly. Social media makes it harder to set boundaries because it shows when you're online. Yeah, absolutely. And so we saw in this scene, the couplet was very intense, right? We kind of sometimes see intensity in terms of like obsessive behaviors or even stalking behaviors. So what are other ways that obsession can present itself besides online and besides what we saw in the video? Blowing up your phone, absolutely. Yeah, I think we all know that feeling of, if our phone is sitting on the desk next to us and it keeps lighting up and lighting up, it feels a little intense, right? Or yeah, them knowing the pictures that you're liking and who you're DMing. That can border on obsession, whether or not you agree to share passwords, but if they know who you're messaging and whose things you're liking. Loving somebody too soon. Yeah, absolutely. Calling over and over just because somebody isn't responding. Yeah, so these are all examples of really intense or even obsessive behaviors. Thank you for sharing, everyone.
I would also add that, intensity, I think, is that gut feeling you get, those uncomfortable butterflies that you get if you see someone is blowing up your phone, right, as was said, or is checking in with you so much or making you feel uncomfortable. It's that gut feeling. And, when we talk about these in terms of the healthy signs, intensity is the opposite of comfortable pace. And it's the opposite of having open and healthy communication about boundaries and things just moving really quickly. So I think everything that people were saying is absolutely on point for a conversation about intensity. So we're going to move on to our second couplet. And let's see. I'll make sure to mute myself this time.
Show us more photos. Sweet!
Aw, you're showing them my foodie pics.
Show us more photos. Sweet!
What? You're showing them my booty pics?
We'll watch it one more time.
Show us more photos. Show us more photos. Sweet!
Aw, you're showing them my foodie pics.
Show us more photos. Sweet!
What? You're showing them my booty pics?
Awesome. So, what did people think? What behaviors does that represent? I'll just repost the 10 signs here. You weren't able to hear or see.
Could we go ahead and replay it one more time?
Yeah, let's see if it works one more time.
Show us more photos.
Sweet!
Aw, you're showing them my foodie pics.
Show us more photos.
Sweet!
What? You're showing them my booty pics?
Were people able to hear that time? Yeah. If you were not, the first, oh, you were, okay, great. But the first section says, show us more photos, sweet, aw, you're showing them my foodie pics. And the second one is, show us more photos, sweet, what? You're showing them my booty pics? Just in case. So someone said, betrayal. What do other people think that this sign was? Betrayal again. Yeah, well, you were right. This definitely shows a betrayal of trust. I also actually think that it really could be sabotage, like someone just said in the chat. What's really interesting about these 10 signs is that they're so interwoven, right? It's really hard to have one without having other ones as well. And so let's just get into talking about this. How do you think peer pressure plays a role in the sending and receiving of explicit photos? You know, now in this sort of new time and in general. And while chat responses are coming in, something that I've noticed, and I don't know if Sheridan, this has been the case for you when you've been talking with students, but something I've noticed is that there's a increased pressure during social distancing to send explicit photos in general. And also just like an increased in that timeline, right? While that might be a conversation that you have later, people are having that earlier and earlier, especially because you're not in person. Exactly. Just like Ms. Lopez said, adding pressure because you can't see that person in person. And because our main form of communication is virtual and is online. And I think those are all so like really play into the increased role that we're seeing. I think what's also interesting when we're talking about the role of explicit photos, especially if you're having this conversation with, you know, college students, teens, even middle schoolers, is acknowledging that people do send and receive these photos, and not coming from a place of judgment or trying to shame anyone for doing it, but really coming from a place of safety and understanding that, you know, this sort of bleeds into the next question, but when we're talking about how you set boundaries with a partner, it's also really important to note that if you're in an unhealthy situation, they could take advantage of the fact that they have those photos. And so again, that's not trying, it's very much not putting judgment on anyone for sending or receiving those photos, but just giving people the tools and skills and language to understand what is safe and is not safe about sending or receiving photos. And so the second question is, how can you set boundaries with a partner about what you are comfortable with? How do you make sure, just like someone put in the chat, that they're not taking advantages of vulnerability and that you're having full conversations about establishing boundaries? All right, well then maybe let's move to the last one and hope we don't have the same technical difficulties. I'm not sure why it worked on the first one and not on the second one. But this is, again, just the third couple we're going to watch, and it is a series of 8. And they are available on our website and also on YouTube if you're interested in looking at some of the other ones. So here's the last one.
Wanna hang out later? Me and my boyfriend always have Monday Fun Day.
Aw. Wanna hang out later?
Me and my boyfriend always have Monday Fun Day.
Tomorrow?
It's our Tuesday snooze day.
Wednesday?
No Friends Day!
Was everyone able to hear it? Great. Okay, well, we'll watch it one more time.
Wanna hang out
later?
Me and my boyfriend always have Monday Fun Day.
Aw. Wanna hang out later?
Me and my boyfriend always have Monday Fun Day.
Tomorrow?
It's our Tuesday snooze day.
Wednesday?
No Friends Day!
Which behavior did you notice in couplet number 3? Possessiveness and isolation, possessiveness, isolation. All right, let's go ahead and check it out. Big reveal. So this one was showing isolation, but you could definitely argue that it was also possessiveness. Isolation in the sense that this person is not able to see a friend because of all these different days they have with a partner. But also you could say maybe that partner is being possessive, right? They're trying to monopolize all of the time of the other couplet. How might you reach out to someone who you are worried is being isolated? And you could take this to mean in shelter in place or outside of it, but how would you reach out to someone who you feel is being isolated? Call or text, set a date to chat. Yeah, I like that. Just checking in, even if it's, not texting to ask, hey, are you being isolated or do you feel isolated? But just to check in. If you're able to set a date to chat, that's amazing. Yeah, I think that constant, especially right now, we're in such a different time where, you're not seeing friends at school or at work or, socializing with them outside. So, all of us are feeling isolated to a certain extent. So it's maybe hard to pick out people who are feeling particularly isolated. Oh, I also just did the not scroll down thing. So call them. I like that, twice in a row. Send a simple text. Hey, I miss you. Let's hang out. Call them and let them know you're thinking about them. Call or text. Kindly express concerns and make sure they're okay. Totally. Yeah, just checking in as a friend is awesome. And I would say based on those answers, approaches don't seem like they would change during quarantine, especially because we looked at that question that way. But if anyone has any ideas, like how might that approach change? Like, I know for me personally, I'm not much of an out of the blue texter. Like, I don't check in or text all that regularly with some friends, but knowing, what situations my friends are all in now. I have one friend who kind of did moved in with her partner in quarantine. And so, I'm just sure to check in with her a little more than normal. Yeah, send them lunch and eat on them with FaceTime. Oh, that's a good idea. I never would have thought of that. They may not answer the phone. Yeah, that's something else to take into consideration. And if it seems like something like maybe you just miss them, that's, that happens. People sometimes aren't there when you call, but if that happens repeatedly, that might be, cause for concern, and try to check in another way. Awesome.
Sometimes if you're seeing people more in person, that can be more challenging, but just texting a simple hello is always, that's the most basic conversation starter there is. So thank you for sharing. I want to thank you all for sitting through all of our technical difficulties of the day. And I also want to, whenever we have these conversations, we never want to leave people without actionable steps and tools they can take. And so at One Love, we have a series of different opportunities that students, educators, and community members can take in order to get more involved. So this is sort of our most elaborate, I suppose, way that people can get involved, our Teen and Campus Ambassador program. So if you are a high school student or a college student or know a high school student or know a college student or going to be a high school student or college student, any of those various situations apply to this. We have a Teen and Campus Ambassador program. The commitment is about 2 to 4 hours a week. It's for people who, like I hope some of you were on this call and thought, wow, I'm taught that the mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell. I'm taught about long division, but I'm not really taught about how to set boundaries. I'm not really taught about how to have relationships and how to have these conversations. And I want to give other people the tools and skills to do that. This is a great venue. It looks great on a resume. We have full-time staff who work with students and really try to give people all the tools and skills they need. And it also is great for building leadership skills, becoming a trained facilitator, leading these with classrooms, working with administration, in that kind of way. I think are all just really great ways. And so more information on this will be sent up in the follow-up email. But I think that this is a great venue for people to get more involved if they're interested in doing so.
And another way you can get involved with us right now in this time of distance learning and virtual learning is we do have a series we're calling At Home with One Love. So we have 3 offerings within that. It's all via Zoom and it's all at set times during the week. So the first of those being our educator hour. Those are, since we're all on the West Coast, I can say that they're at 11 a.m. Pacific time. And those are recommended for educators. We cover topics ranging from, how to support students and how to help them safety plan to how to host your own virtual workshop, anything, in between. This is really giving the educators the tools and the knowledge they need so that when they do go back into the classroom or even when they're teaching virtually, they can incorporate lessons of healthy relationships within their teaching. And then we do have virtual workshops. So that is pretty much our traditional workshop format taken virtual. So we watch a One Love film and then we, talk about it, go into discussion breakout rooms and really talk about the content, about the behaviors we're seeing, the relationships, and get down to things like, how do we support friends in this situation? How can we build a safety plan around this? And that is at 1 p.m. on Mondays and Thursdays. I forgot to mention at the top that all of these are taking place Mondays and Thursdays. And this is recommended, the virtual workshops are recommended for ages 14 and up. So if you have students that you're interested in sending to see these workshops, if you yourself want to be on these workshops and learning how One Love does what we do, then that's a great place for you to be. We also have relationship roundups. These are specific for people ages 14 to 22, kind of high school to college students. And these are a little more informal conversation series. We examine relationships through popular media. We talk about, how our relationships have shifted and how they've changed in this time of COVID-19. Last week we heard from professional lacrosse players about bromance and how they lean on each other in times of struggle, and how, all different sorts of relationships influence our lives. So that is at 4 p.m. Pacific time. And there is a link at the bottom of this slide. So you can always visit joinonelove.org/@home-with-one-love to register for all of these. And again, I believe this will be sent in the follow-up email as well.
Yes, they will be sent in the follow-up email. The last thing that we want to talk about is ways that you can, more specific concrete steps. So I talked about, I'm going to go from the bottom to the top, I just realized, but get involved. That can mean a multitude of different things. That could be the team leadership or campus leadership programs that I talked about. That could be getting involved with any number of our initiatives that you can find on our website. Just like Sheridan said, you can join an At Home with One Love call. Those are absolutely free to anyone who wants them, anyone who wants to have more of these conversations and build their skills. And you can also bring 3 friends if you want some extra brownie points. And then the last step is bring One Love's curriculum to your school. So I'm going to talk briefly about what those look like. So right now, One Love staff are zooming in to schools around the country. So like someone asked in the chat, do we do these kinds of workshops? We right now can Zoom into schools around the country and give people these kinds of workshops. We really do pride ourselves in being a train the trainer model. We have a learning management system that allows people to go on, get trained, and actually lead these workshops in their own classrooms. One of the things that we know is that every community, every identity, and everyone of any background can experience relationship violence, experience unhealthy behaviors, and we don't want there to be any barrier to this work. So when you go to our website, you can download all of our videos, all of our content completely free and use them in your classrooms or with your students or with your kids or with your families or anything like that, because we don't want there to be any barriers to this work. And we have also cultivated in this time lesson plans for virtual workshops that you can lead with your students or that we can come in and lead. Generally, we want people to be leading these in their own classrooms and even having youth take on leading them themselves. So I know we're running a little short on time, but I want to give people the chance to ask questions. And then if we're also running even more on time, if you want to put questions in the chat box and we can individually reach out to you.
Sure. Yeah, so please feel free to leave any questions in the chat box. And let me go ahead and switch this. I'll make myself a little bit bigger. So please feel free to leave any questions. Some of the questions you ladies already answered. So the 10 unhealthy and healthy signs. I'm pretty sure you do have that as a resource, so I can send that as well via an email to everybody that signed up today. And then our presenter's information is in the chat box as well. Please feel free to copy and paste that. And I think there was, oh yeah, do you provide these classes in San Bernardino? And you do. Currently, you're providing Zoom classes, which I think is awesome.
Something else I'll also mention, it's so exciting that Sheridan is on this call with us, because if you are located in Southern California, she is your direct One Love point of contact and works with schools all throughout Southern California. And we'll be able to provide you with any additional information you may need if you're thinking about this from a class, a school, a district level mindset. So it's great that she's here with us right now.
Yes, thank you. So I did receive just a question before the webinar, and it's more of a personal question, but how can I start this conversation with a friend who I think may be in an unhealthy relationship?
Yeah, thank you so much for asking that question. It can be so challenging when the people in our lives are in these relationships, because I think sometimes our first and immediate reaction is like, "What are you doing? Just leave." But we never want to tell anyone just to leave, because we want to make sure that they're being safe. And so I'm actually going to drop a couple of links into our into the chat box for y'all to take a look
Awesome.
at. So this is our Say This Not That. It's a great way to start having the conversation. Instead of saying break up with them, maybe start with an open-ended question to get them more comfortable with having that kind of conversation with you, or something along those lines. And then the other thing that I want to show you all in terms of that is our breakup safety plan. So this is more if you're worried about someone who's in a romantic relationship. But if you find that you're worried about them being in an unhealthy romantic relationship, we don't want to ever say just break up, because actually the 6 to 8 weeks after a breakup are the most dangerous part of the relationship. And so this should give you some good tools and skills of people you should reach out to and the way that you can start this conversation if you think that's what will keep them safest.
Thank you so much. I want to go ahead and just add our survey link for today in the chat box as well. And I just want to thank Sheridan and Brea for taking the time out of the day and presenting for our Take 30 webinar. This is great information. Everything that they provided in the chat box, I'll be sure to get that from them. And I will send it in a follow-up email to everybody that was here today. And then also the presentation, will be sure to send that, and the replay of the webinar as well. So I want to just thank our viewers for taking the time out of your day, whether you're from home or if you're physically distancing in an office setting. Oh, you cannot hear me. I'm not muted. Can anybody else hear me? Okay. Oops. Sorry, Brandon. I'm not sure why you're not able to hear me. But all this information, like I said, we'll be sending that out in a follow-up email. And I just want to thank everybody that participated today. And please feel free to fill out our survey. I'll send that out in an email as well, just to get some feedback from our viewers. Thank you again so much, ladies. I really appreciate the information you provided today.
Yeah, of course. We hope to hear from some of you soon, and hope to see you at home at One Love Calls in the future.
Definitely. I will share that information with them as well in a follow-up email.
Perfect.
Thank you, ladies. Everybody have a great day. Stay safe and happy physical distancing from home. Bye, everybody.